Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. Dan, where are you? There she is.
I'm right here. Hello, everybody. Hello, Facebook friends. Welcome to our September Spice Mystery Guest interview. And thanks for tuning in with us this evening. And don't forget to give us a comment or a question for our special guest this evening. And if you're not with us this evening, please watch us on the replay, and we'd love you to do that as well. Now, to our live guests, don't forget, Liz and Angela will be watching for your questions. So fire them away. If you don't make some questions, we're going to have to make up our own pretty soon here. Our guest this evening is a dynamic guest. She is, well, I shouldn't have said she. She is a CEO of a successful business and a Sweet Adeline regional and chorus leader. And on top of all of that, as if that isn't enough, she's an accomplished pianist. So now let's have a drum roll. Welcome, Chris Temperante.
Ta-da! Now I got to be dynamic, huh?
We know that you are.
All right.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Chris.
I think this is going to be fun.
I think so too.
If it's not, I'll be chatting with each of you individually at the end of this time period.
We'll get little notes later. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly what I'm saying.
Our first question is, what brought you to barbershop?
Well, my very first memory of, honestly, the first memory I can remember my whole life is being in the bathtub with my mother, who was a barber shopper, giving me a bath and making me sing the lead part to Light a Rose so that she could sing her tenor part against it. And that honestly is my earliest memory of my whole life. So I started out with this very positive feeling about barbershop. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And I loved the harmonies. And then later on, when I went to high school, I thought, oh, I can sing now in a chorus. This will be really cool. So I go to the chorus and I'm like, they said, what part? Alto. I'm going to sing alto. It's going to be great. And then somebody goes, she plays the piano. And that was the end of that. I was yanked out of the choir and never have been in a choir until Sweet Adeline's, because I always had to play the piano. Not that I don't like playing the piano, but anyway. So then when I moved, right after college, I moved to Minnesota and I immediately joined a chorus, the St. Paul chorus at that time, which was a really big deal. I mean, there were a ton of people in that St. Paul chorus, and they were up against, Racine, I think. It was like this big thing. We were going to this big competition and I got sick, so I didn't get to go. And then the following year, I went back to night school and got my master's degree. And then I had kids, and one thing and another. It was 15 years till I got back to it. And I went back to the St. Paul chorus, and it was teeny, it was nothing like it had been the first time, and sang in that chorus for a year or two until they really decided not to compete anymore. And then we were buddies with the Valley de Croix chorus. So I ended up moving over there, and then eventually to City of Lakes. So that is my barbershop story.
Well, Chris, we know that you're not just a chorus singer, you're also an accomplished quartet singer as well. And I didn't know that I could add lead also to your tenor and bass.
No, you cannot.
So
I only have two ranges, up here and down here. The in-between is really iffy. Even Mary Dick would say that.
Well, tell us about your quartets.
Well, I don't remember the year of my first quartet. I think it was right after my youngest son, who was born, who is now 33. So it was something like that. And it was a chorus called Momentum. And it was people from all different choruses. I don't even remember how we met them all. But there were a couple from TC. One I had sung with in St. Paul, one from TC, and one from City of Lakes. I think Kathy Mickish at the time was from City of Lakes, and she was one of the ones I sang with. So I sang in that quartet. Then I didn't sing for a while in quartets. And the next thing you know, Patty Torrey is calling me up saying, I want to wear this red dress. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, and the chorus isn't going to wear it. They're just not. So I'm starting a quartet. And I'm like, seriously, to wear a red dress? And she's like, yeah, that's it. We're going to do. So we went and got, guess who? Liz and Joyce Kish. And we started Montage. And kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it was a great dress. We wore it for a couple of years. so that in some ways feels like kind of my first real thing. And then the rest of the story you could get from Liz, because she was in every other quartet I was in over the next few years. But Montage, people would kind of come and go, and it eventually morphed into Espresso. And then Espresso went through, originally was Pat, at some point, Pat Rigg then joined. And then Patty Torrey had stepped out, Pat Rigg joined, and then Joyce Kish stepped out and Connie Miller joined. So we had a couple times we won the region, which was really fun. And it was a little annoying being with Liz for that amount of time, as I'm sure you guys are familiar, but it worked out okay.
It did. And thanks for singing with me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I know.
We love Liz.
She's never annoying.
Oh,
And the stories you guys tell on these things here, I thought they were fact-based, but
That's not for public.
Shh. I love my quartet.
Of course.
So, Chris, we know that you are an amazing piano player. And so how long have you been playing? Clearly you started young, it sounds like. Can you give us a little history of your piano?
yeah. My sister, it's funny, my sister was 3 years older than I am, still is, oddly. And I know, funny how that was. I never did catch up. And she loved to teach. So she would go to school, and then she'd come home and teach me everything. And so she was taking piano lessons, and then she would come home and teach me everything. And so I knew the notes on the piano, and I knew how to play a little bit when I was, I don't know, pretty young, I guess. And she was practicing one day, and she kept hitting this wrong note. And my mother's like, fix that. And I'm like, so I yell in from the other room, that should be a C sharp. And my mother goes, what?
Whoa.
Runs in and then starts hitting notes in the piano. And I knew what they were. And she's like, said to my sister, okay, you're out and you're in. So I started getting lessons. I was, I think, almost 6 at that point. So I started taking lessons. And my mother had been a singer for she grew up in Iowa, and she was a USO singer in Iowa, not actually overseas, but and she had this friend of hers who I remember to this day named Marjorie Roseman. And Marjorie Roseman could play the piano by ear, and she so wanted me to be able to play the piano by ear. So we would go take lessons, and she would always tell the teachers, make her play by ear. And they were like, yeah, I don't know how to do that. So I just took regular piano lessons. But, right after my mom passed away, no more than probably a month or 2 later, I could play by ear. It's the freakiest, coolest thing, but it really is true. And I remember, and my first song was Red Rubber Ball. You remember that? The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. I mean, it's like the stupidest song, but that was the very first song I ever learned how to play. And then I don't know, I could just hear it, and I still can. So I'm great at a bar.
Oh my God, it was such a gift. I mean, such a gift, and people can modulate into a different key and all that. This is just amazing to me. But you continue to play lessons because you take just 8 houses down from me. So you're, I don't know if you're still taking now, but you as an adult, you have taken lessons.
Yeah, I actually taught lessons for a little bit. That is not my calling in life. Let's just be clear about that. It's just so funny though. I taught little kids for a while, and little kids, like, they don't care at all. So they don't care if they screw up. They don't care if they practice. They don't care at all. Then I gave lessons to some adults, and the adults really cared, and they were so stressed about everything. Oh my God, why am I getting this wrong? Why can't I? It was just such an interesting contrast to me of the 2 different ways they go about things. That was just a hoot. But somewhere along there, I got pregnant with Tony, and my first son, and I decided time to just stop everything and be a mother, and which only lasted 6 months. And then I kind of went back to my normal life. But I did stop taking lessons for 6 months. And other than that, I've taken them all along. Different kinds the teacher I have now and have had for quite a while is she's an expression. She has her master's, I think maybe she even has her PhD in expression. And so that's a whole different kind of thing, because you learn how to play the notes and get different sounds out of them. The different sounds that come back to you on the piano. And generally there's a story behind, or at least I'm thinking about something a little bit when I'm playing, and try to do a little homework on the song and find out, some things about it and stuff. But to me, that was always the point. Like, if you can't touch people, you know, why play? So
Right.
that's
Like
always been
barbershop.
something.
It's like the same thing as
exactly.
barbershop.
Exactly. If you just stand there and sing, it's like, okay, that's cool. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree.
That's great. Well, this last year you graced all of your friends with your gift by posting the 12 days of Christmas with, you know, Chris Temperante style.
Yeah.
And it was so wonderful. And oh, I just hope you do that again this year because that was so special. But
No,
it's really interesting how that came about. I was, I mean, I've played the piano my whole life. And my high school friends our mascot was the Beavers. So I call our friends the Beavers. So my high school buddies who are now, you know, all over the country. But there's four of us who hang out, get together once a year. And they said, well, sometime when you're playing, just make a tape for us. And I'm like, well, that'd be kind of weird, but okay. So I stuck the piano at the end of the, at the end of the keyboard and played something for them. And they were like, had a million questions like, what are you thinking? How do you pick your music? And during the process of all that questioning, I really was excited about sharing that part of me with somebody. I mean, I never felt bad about like, oh, I can't share but it was just the coolest thing. It kind of opened up this whole new, and one of them is an art teacher and very artistic. And so she would compare it to like, how do I decide what to paint? And I don't know, it was a really cool process. So I was just all like kind of warmed up from that. And so once a month I would try to complete something that I was working on. And it also gave me a sense of completion with my music instead of like, okay, I'm done. Shoot, what's the next one? It finished it more, you know, it became, you worked a little harder and had a little more finished product at the end. So that's, yeah. So that's where I was when Preem gave me a call or texted me or something and said, why don't you do something for the chorus for the the Christmas show or Christmas party? And so I thought about it and I thought, well, it kept being more clear that we weren't sure we were even going to have a Christmas party that everybody would be able to come. So I thought maybe I'll do 12 days worth of it. And then the process got really interesting because I was only going to talk the first day and say, here's why I'm doing this. But then I started getting those same kinds of questions, like, what are you thinking about? And how did you pick that song? And what other ones are you picking? And da-da-da-da-da. So I started talking more and people seemed to like it more. Do not encourage me to talk. It's not always a really good idea. But so it just became kind of this, I don't know, in my mind, a very special thing. It just became very special. I didn't understand it at first. And I asked some people like, why is this such a big deal? And a couple of people said it's so intimate because you're just at your house and it's like you're playing for us. And anyway, I thought it was a really, really cool thing. And I am not planning on repeating it because I think some things you shouldn't try to repeat.
Gotcha.
And I'm not saying I wouldn't do something else sometime. I certainly would, but that just seemed like that was a COVID thing. It was a right thing for the right time. And I don't know, I would not repeat it right now
it was very special.
It was cool. It was really, really as cool for me as it was for everybody else. It was really nice.
But would you grace us with a little tune tonight?
Well, you know, oddly, I'm sitting right here at my piano. That's highly coincidental, but I am.
That happened.
Yes, and I will let you know that I will not be. I'm going to move this so you can get back to your normal position. But I have moved my piano to another room. So if you look for that refrigerator that you saw all during the 12 days, you will not see it anymore. Because now you're just going to see a wall. It's a little board. Put a picture over there of some kind, but I haven't. Okay, so I will ask you two questions at the end. I'll ask you the name of the song and I'll ask you the Broadway show that it is from. Because you don't want to be lazy and just be hanging on. And then you can see if anybody responds online on chat. All right, here we go.
beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
I knew it after a while, but only because of Miss Judy Weipert on Facebook.
Hi, Judy.
So Heidi, Angela, Jen, did you know the song?
I know it, but I don't know what it's from. So try to remember that kind of September.
Yeah.
What-
So it's
what's it from?
I picked a September song because it's September. If
And-
you interview me again next month, it could be anything.
And both Judy Weipert and Ann Westra said it's from
hi, Ann.
the Fantastics.
And they are both correct.
Yay!
If you
Yay.
didn't get it, I was just going to keep playing Try to Remember until someone actually remembered, because just to be annoying, just.
Yeah, I didn't know it until Judy said try to remember, and then I could hear it. I couldn't hear it before then. I'm not sure why.
You know,
That was
what's funny is
awesome.
I watched the Tony Awards Sunday night, and they were giving a list of people showing people who had passed away, and that's the song they played behind it. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a little sad, but no one will remember that. But now I told you so.
Right. So speaking of Facebook and Judy Weipert, she has a question for you. What is
All
your
right.
favorite piano piece?
Honestly, I play a lot of classical music, and a lot of what I'm working on at the time, I usually have at least one thing I'm completely in love with. I especially actually like Piazzolla tangos, which are just really kind of fun to play. But I would have to say anything Broadway. I'm still in my heart of hearts, Broadway is still the very best.
Nice.
I think it's cool. So
Yeah. And do you remember Judy calling you the voice of reason ever?
I do. I do. I don't know if she still has that opinion or not, but we'll see.
I don't know. I don't know.
She doesn't say.
Don't ask her yet.
We've got lots of hellos and applause for you for your very
Oh.
beautiful playing. So I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to let you know that.
Thank you.
And with all of your musical experiences, do you have one or a couple most memorable musical moments?
I think the most incredible musical moment I ever had, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Lion King first opened, it opened in the Twin Cities first, before it went to Broadway. And we had tickets. And I don't know if you've ever seen a live production of Lion King, but they come down the aisles. And if you've never seen it, and they're dressed in these, they have things on their heads. And it was unspeakable to me. It was so overwhelming. And the creativity was like, oh my God, that just goes to a level. I don't even know anybody who knows anybody who knows anybody who could think like that. Just the amazing, it was puppetry. There were people walking around who just had grass on their heads, because they were part of the jungle. It was just, so that to me is still kind of my favorite ever moment, where I just was, and my kids were with me. And it was just, everybody was just like, oh, just the most amazing thing ever. It was really cool.
Awesome.
I saw that show, but I was in like the very last row of the balcony, so I'm not sure I felt the same immersion that you did.
And thank you for not saying you were probably in a kindergarten field trip at the time.
No, but I didn't know that it opened here. I didn't realize that.
It did. It opened here. It was really
cool.
exciting.
Nice. So Chris, businesswoman, kind of changing gears here. How did you become a successful businesswoman, and like what kind of challenges did you find along the way? Any obstacles to overcome?
When I first moved here, I had applied at 3M online when I moved here. Well, it probably wasn't online. There probably wasn't an online. I probably sent him a letter.
Right.
And I came to visit John, who did get a job, walked in and did get a job at 3M. And I called them and said, I sent my resume. I never heard anything. And they said, oh, we just sent you a rejection. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, why? And they said, because we're done hiring in June. And John and I were going to get married in August. So I said, what if I can come now? And they said, well, come over today. You can do an interview. So I went to interview with this guy, and he's in his office watering his plants, and he doesn't ask me one question. Like, I'm worried about my grade point average. Like, I'm worried about, and he doesn't ask me anything. And so then I started like, well, what's the job going to be like? It was a cost accounting job. What's the job going to be like? And finally he just stopped and said, none of it matters. We need women. You're a woman. You're going to be hired. Doesn't matter. I'm like, so even though I was like, well, that's pretty crappy, I was also like, well, that's pretty cool. So
They picked the best woman they could have ever picked.
So I think honestly, especially at 3M in those early days when it was such a, I mean, I was at 3M for 22 years, I think. And, you know, in the early days, it was just such a freak thing to have a woman. Like I couldn't travel with the guys because their wives wouldn't allow a woman to travel with her. I mean, there were just so many weird things. But I think in general, I would say I had a very stepwise career because I would hire somebody who would say, I don't know how you got in this position and I'm never promoting you. And I would just sit there for, 5 or 6 years. Then I'd have somebody who would say, I think it's cool to have women move ahead and I want to be seen as cutting edge. So then I'd go like, boom, boom. And I'm like, I wasn't even in that job more than 6 months, but it was like, and then, so I don't know if it made any difference at the end of anything, but it was sure a weird, kind of a weird progress on the way up. And I finally figured out somewhere that I should not be in a big company. And then a division of 3M was spun off and I had a choice to stay at 3M or go with it. So I went with it. And then from there, I just was in a few small companies until I finally bought into my own. So, and here I am happily ever after, never a dark day. Everything's always wonderful. except for COVID, except for, the 2008, 2009 thing. Yeah. But I still really like it. I keep thinking I should be getting out of it, but I really like it. So here I am.
That's great. That's great. So Chris, we know you love to travel and you have traveled a lot. Can you give us like your favorite, most favorite trip or favorite city or country?
I think my world must somehow come back to Lion King because we did a safari. I just saw the other day, it's been 6 years since we did a safari. And that was just the most amazing thing. And all I could think of, I swear to God, all I could think of, we'd be out in, we'd always go at like 5 in the morning to see the animals. And you'd be out and barely could see because it was so dark. It's just beginning to light up. And then you'd start seeing these enormous animals and this enormous space. And then all I could think of was the circle of life. And there's more to see than can ever be seen. And again, I was, couldn't speak. I mean, I was just like, it was just the most amazing thing to me. I would give all my other trips up for that one. That was just
awesome.
An amazing thing. And then of course I of course enjoy going to the Czech Republic because that's where my 3 of my grandsons live, with the other one now in Chicago. So I always like that. And when I had a job where I had responsibilities in Europe. So I was traveling a lot and it would take us 3 years. In 3 years, I could save enough miles so that the family could go to Europe. And so every 3 years we'd make a trip to Europe. And that was always very cool.
Wow. Well, thank you so much.
I want to just ask one more question from Kathy Luckin.
Yeah.
Chris, do you remember playing at her wedding?
I do. Absolutely. I remember I think it was at a golf club. I mean, not at the, in the little room at this golf club. I do. And that's it. Now Liz is going to cut us off.
Well, no, I'm not going to cut you off. I've got one
right.
more question. Before we let you go, do you have any spice advice for us or our listeners? Any philosophy you live by? Any advice?
I have been thinking a lot about something I heard a few weeks ago at church, actually. And it was sending the kids back to school. And one of the things that the pastor said was, remember to be loved. So remember you are loved and you need to be loved and feel that love. Remember to be kind and remember to be you. And I think of that a lot. I think about it for individual people who you're loved, but you don't stop and think about it very often. And what could be better than that? Being kind, what could be better than that? And what we all need right now in so many ways. And just to become more and more of ourselves. And I guess it would work for a quartet as well. You are a quartet that's really loved. You are a quartet that's, except for Liz, generally very kind. And you are a quartet and probably you are becoming more and more of who you are. The more you're together and the more comfortable you are, and you probably just continue to learn about yourselves in the process. So good on you. I think you guys do a great job. You're a huge asset to the region. Thank you for being who you are, and you are very loved.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was oddly genuine. Very kind. Always fun to talk with you, Chris. Thanks so much for being our September mystery guest. And for those of you still on Facebook and YouTube, you can catch, we only have 2 interviews left before we wrap this whole thing up. Our next interview is October 27th, so put that on your calendars. We'd love to see you there. And until then, live life with a little spice.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.